Hey, hello guys, welcome to episode 6 of our series on the Swan e-commerce system. And in this episode, we're going to focus on theming our application. So we'll continue from where we left off the other time. And we refactored our build.gradle files to a Kotlin Gradle DSL the last time. So we are just going to proceed from there. So I'm going to switch to the Android view here, and I'll go into my resources folder under values. Today we're going to work with this folder. So under values over here, we are going to create quite a number of things here. We're going to have we're going to work with colors, shape, typography, and yeah, I think that's about it. So we're going to work with colors, shapes, and typography for our application to make it unique. So currently, this is what we have. Now, when going to the themes, we have two of them, one for dark mode and one for the light mode, right? This was auto-generated for us, okay? So what I usually do is, instead of splitting the theme itself into two files, right? The light and then the night. I rather create one theme file. So let me delete this. I rather create one theme file, and I switch between the colors that it uses based on the colors file itself. So what I'm going to do here is let's just create this. So I'm going to create colors.xml, and I'm going to select a mode for the color. So night mode, I'm going to set this to be night and press OK. So it has to get the same file name as what we have over here. And I'll set it to be OK. So it will just group them for me, like what we have there. And inside here, let's do a little refactoring here. So what I'm going to do is this purple 200, you realize that I'm not using it inside my theme over here for the regular mode. So I'm going to move this purple 200 value to the night colors. So I'll set a property here called color, and I'll call this primary, and I'll paste this there. So you realize that it's giving me this error over here saying that the color primary is in values night but has no declaration in the base values folder. So I need to create primary as well inside my colors folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this name to primary. So I did shift F6 again and then continue. So now the error should be gone here. And then instead of purple 700, I'm going to call this primary variant. And then this teal 200 here is going to be my secondary color. So I'll explain these namings and then why I'm giving them over here to you in a bit. So secondary variant, and I'm just going to make copies of these colors inside my night mode here. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Primary variant. I'll change these colors. Don't worry. These are not the colors I intend to use. So let me just use one color throughout. Let me just do this. I'll use one color here. So for the primary and primary variants, I'm using the same colors, and secondary variants, the same colors for the night mode. And in the light mode, or yes, I think the regular mode, this is what we're going to have. So when we go into our theming, you realize that we are inheriting from theme.materialcomponents.day-night.dark-action-bar. So the day-night property over here tells the application that this theming file is actually it can be used by any device that supports dark mode as well. You understand? So we can set when our application is not running in the dark mode, or the mode of your device is not in a dark mode state, then it will use the colors or the properties that we defined over here. Now once it goes into the dark mode, then it's going to use the colors that I defined over here instead of the ones that I have. This is going to override them. And you realize that we have this toolbar at the top here, this action bar. So I'm going to remove it by just setting this to no action bar, and then I run the application again. Okay, it's running. Yeah, so it's gone, and then you realize that we have a color here for our status bar, and it's actually inheriting from the color primary variant, which is what we've defined here. So that's the color we are seeing there. I don't want to use this color, right? I want to use the color of the background itself. So what I'm going to do is, instead of using this, I'm going to call on Android color background, which is going to use the color of the background. Then I run the application again. Okay, and it's installing. Good. Now we cannot see the icons in the status bar, right? So I'm going to enable one more option over here, and I'm going to call this light. It's called light status bar, and it takes in a boolean true or false. So what I'm going to do is I can set, so let me just set this to be true for now. When I set this to be true and I run the application, let's run it first and see what happened. Okay, so you realize that I can see the icons over here for now. Now when I pull this down and I switch to dark mode, okay, so let me just add the dark mode switch here. So I'm just going to drag and drop this anywhere. Yeah, and I'll just switch to dark mode. So once I tap on this and switch to dark mode, our application's interface is going to look like this, and you realize that now I can't see the status bar icons anymore because I set this to be true, and I'm not overriding this themes property, so it's going to remain true throughout. What we can do is we can create a values folder here called bool, right? And this bool is going to have both we're going to create like the way we created the colors. So bool, and then I'm going to set this to be night true. And what this is going to do is I'm going to store every boolean that I'll be using inside the application here. So we're just going to use bool like this. We set the name to be is light status, or let's just call this yeah, it's light status. So I'll just call it is dark mode, and I'll set this to be false here, and I'll copy this, and I'll set that property here to be true. And then inside my themes, I'll just call is dark mode here. So the status bar icons will be dark if we're in light mode, and it will be light if we're in dark mode. See, so Windows light status bar, when it's in dark mode, okay, I think there's a little confusion. So let me rename this. So yeah, let me rename this. So instead of is dark mode, let me just call it is light status. And what I'm going to do is, if it's light status, then in the light mode we're going to set it to be true, and in the dark mode I'm going to set it to be false. Yeah, I think this makes sense. Okay, so now when I run the application again, it should resolve the problem that we had initially. Okay. Okay, so we are having light icons in the dark mode, and now when I switch to light mode, we are supposed to have dark icons. Yeah, dark icons over here. Good. So sorry, I have a little code, that's why. So the next thing to do here is to update our colors, right? I don't like these colors actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste in some colors here. So I have these colors here, and yeah, these are the colors I want to use for my light mode. And for the dark mode, I'm going to have these colors. Yeah, it looks the same, but there's one. The first two, the primary, are a bit darker than the secondary colors. That's for the light mode. Sorry, the dark mode. So let me run this application again, and it should be able to compile the colors and apply them to our application theme. Okay, so I'll wait for the installation. Okay, so you realize that the color has been applied to our button over here. It's using the primary color. Okay, so now let me do a little explanation of the colors that we have here. So when you create an application, right, for those who are new to this environment, this primary color property that we have here is usually used on certain components within our application, like the button, for instance. The one that we have here is going to use primary color. That is the main color that we use throughout the application, right, for almost anything, any view at all, right, unless we explicitly state our colors for them. And by default, Android uses a white text on top of your primary color when you're running in light mode, and a dark text on top of your primary color when you're running in dark mode. Okay, so when you pick a primary color and it's light inside your light mode, you can override the color that is placed on top of it by setting the on primary property, right? The color on primary property. So let's say, suppose I had a color that is lighter than this and is close to white, like a very light color. Let's say yellow. Yellow is not close to white, I know, but let's say we have yellow, right? And you realize that when I overlay this white text on it, it becomes hard to read, right? And it could be a problem for people who are using the application and have problems with maybe their site or something. So to make this, to solve this problem, we can add certain variables over here. So we can create a color property here saying on primary, and then on primary can use the white color that we've defined below here. And then also on secondary, so on the secondary we also want to use white, right? By defining these two properties over here, I can override them inside the dark mode as well. And instead of using white, I'm going to use black, because we have a lighter color here. And I'll apply these properties to my theme. So over here, I'm going to use, instead of using white, I'll use on primary, and here on secondary. Good. So it's going to use the colors based on the theme that we have currently running in the application. So this won't change anything actually when I run the app, because it's going to use the same colors. But in the event where you need to change the colors, this is one way of doing it. Also, the primary variant, usually we use a lighter color for the primary and a darker color for the primary variant. So let me just flip these two. So you realize that the IDE is giving me hints over here that in my light mode, I'm using this color, and in the night mode, I'm using that color. You see, so when I highlight this, here, it gives me the same hint over here, and so on and so forth. See? So in night mode, I'm using black, light mode, I'm using white. So this is one way of also helping you understand how to apply your colors. The IDE informs you of the kind of colors that we are using throughout your application. So let's add some more things to our colors and make this complete. So we can also change the background color of our application. So I'm just going to duplicate this, of course, because I don't want to type it. And I'm going to set this to background. And I'm going to set an item here with the name color background. So you realize that we are using this Android color background, over here. The same thing that we have here. So I'm just saying that look for, so instead of using the at sign over here, I'm using a question mark telling me that you should query this property and apply it here, right? You realize that the other ones, I'm using the at. That means I've defined them and I want them to use these variables themselves. But in this instance, I'm just saying that whatever property that I assigned to this field, apply that same property here. See, that's why I'm using a question mark in front. So for our background color, in the light mode, I want to use white. So I'm just going to type in white here. Or I'll just say background here. So that since it's a theming something, we can just do it like this. And we define the colors here. So let me just duplicate this and move it up. And I'll do the same for the night mode. So instead of white, you're going to use black. Okay, good. So this will be pure black, but we don't want our application running in pure black, right? So I'm going to use a different color here. So I'm going to use a lighter shade of the black, which is 15, 15, 15 over here. And yeah, so it will be applied here. And then we can also set the color that should be used on the background. So supposing we had different colors aside what the platform usually expects us to have. So let's say in our light mode, we had a different color aside white as our background color. Then we need to define our background, our color on background property over here, right? So over here, I'm just going to use, so let me just define it. So color on background. So I'm just going to use I'm going to look for this attribute here. And I'm going to say use color on primary. Right, so the color on primary is white. So the color on background is also going to be what? White. You get the point. Right, so in the light mode, it's going to use a white text on the background, which is not what we expect. So let me just flip this. So instead of using this, we can use, what do we call it? We can assign another property here on background, like this. And I'm going to create this color here. So I'll just duplicate this and write on background, like this. And on background, I want to use black. Yeah. But then in the night mode, on background, I want to use white. Good. Yeah. So we having black on white in the light mode and white on black in the dark mode. So again, this is not going to affect the application in any way. So even if I run it, you won't see any difference here yet. So moving on from colors, right? There's a lot more you can do with colors, but moving on from colors, we can set let me just add the rest. So we can also set colors for our arrow. So we can set color arrow like this. Since we are using material components, we don't need the Android color arrow. So it's going to override it. So we can also set our color arrow like this. And just use maybe a color /arrow. Let's say we want to define our own arrow colors, right? And we can also set the on arrow color over here as well, which is also going to use the on primary, color on primary. Yeah. So I'm going to define arrow colors here. So here, good. I'm going to have arrow here. Usually we use red for our arrows, so you can pick any color from here. So I'll be using this color here for my arrow in the light mode, and in the dark mode I'll be using a different color there. So yeah, here I'll be using this color. Good. Yeah. So when I go over this, it's going to tell me, okay, in dark mode I'm using this pinkish color here, and in light mode I'm going to use this red color there. Good. So as I said earlier, you're not going to see any difference here. Okay. So we'll move on from colors. Probably we'll get back to it sometime in the future when we want to make additional changes. Yeah, especially to our navigation. Here you realize that you can have a transparent background as well. We can set all of those properties in the future. Currently we may not need it, just to create an immersion when we run the application, right? So let's move on to the next part. So we are going to work with the next one is typography, right? So I'm going to create one here called type, and we're going to create typography properties here. So in order to get started with this site, it's a bit tricky, right? Let me just pin this here since we'll be using it throughout. In order to get a font, it's either you download the fonts from a website, let's say Google Fonts, and put them inside a font folder over here in your application. So you can go here, just type F font, and then you paste them here and you use them inside your resources. Or you can open any of your layout files here. Let's see, activity, work and fragment. So I'm going to look for a text property on this page. So I'm going to look for a text property on this page. Let's say I select this guy here, and then I search for font family. By default, it's using sans serifs. We can scroll down to more fonts, and we can download fonts on the fly from here. And this process has been made very simple as compared to 2-3 years earlier, where you had to manually write some code to download the fonts and use them inside your application if you don't want to include it inside your APK, so that you use it online. So once the device connects to the internet for the first time, it downloads the fonts and caches them onto the device, and it will keep using them throughout the life cycle of your application. In this case, we can just get the fonts from here and use them in our application. So I'm going to choose, there are some fonts that I like here. I'm going to use Marvin Pro Medium, and I'll use it as a downloadable font rather than adding it to my project. The advantage of using these approaches, when you add the font to your project, it's going to increase the size of your APK, the downloadable application that you put on the Play Store, right? Because the fonts are included inside the application, just as how we have the images included inside the application. It's going to increase the size of the APK. So to avoid that, you have to, it's a best practice to create downloadable fonts, right? So I'm going to use the downloadable fonts. And the reason I'm using Medium is because I'll be using it for my titles. So I click on OK, and currently I'm not online, so it's not going to show a preview here, but it's going to set up a couple of files that we'll be using for our fonts. So first, it created this XML file here. You see, and yes, this is how our font looks like. It created this XML file here, and the font provider is this authority. That's the name of the font, the weight. Since I'm using Medium, so it's 500, and that's for the web developers. They'll understand this better. And yeah, And then it also added this to my values folder, saying that I have preloaded fonts of this type. See, and it registered it as well inside my Android manifest as a metadata in the application. Right, so we would have done all of this ourselves. Suppose we use a manual approach, but in this case, we don't want to do that. So you can generate the fonts just the way that I did it, right, and it will work fine. Okay, it will work fine. And one more thing, I think you need to include the permission to use internet here. So we have users permission internet. So and then we can also use access network state. The reason why I'm adding these two permissions is to allow the application to communicate with the internet. This will allow fonts to be downloaded on the fly, right? So if we don't have access to the internet, it can't use the internet to download these fonts. So you need to add these two properties here, okay? Else you get a weird error, right? I've had that error before. It's not nice. Okay, so yeah, that's our first font. The next one is I also want to use a different font for my text, right? For all of the body texts. So I'm going to use Rubik. So I will go for two variations of Rubik, regular and medium. So I'll first download regular, and the next one is that I'll go for the medium. So I won't pick the first one. The first one is the one that we downloaded. The first one is the one that we downloaded. So I'll go for the second one, which is this guy, medium, over here. Yes. So you realize that it has applied it here. I think I've used it before on this machine, and it's installed on this machine. That's why I can see a preview of it here. But if it's not, you would have to download it, right? But when you run the application anyways, it will still download it. Now that we've applied this font here, I don't want to statically, create the fonts myself. So what I'm going to do is, since I added it manually, I'm just going to remove this field font here so that I can use my theme to set the font over here. So rather that this is using text appearance headline 4, right? So I'm telling to look for the text appearance headline 4 property for my theme. Currently, when you hover over this is what it's using. It's using sans serifs, and it has a text size of 34 SP, and then the text style of normal, right? And then text all caps is false. Okay, good. And it has a letter spacing of 0.007, blah, blah, blah. So what we are going to do here is this. We'll go inside. We're going to do here. We'll go into our type file over here, and we are going to set the following properties. So we are going to set the headlines. So the headline, I'm using headline 4, 5, and 6. I'll be using headlines 4, 5, and 6 for the application. I'll be having body text 1 and 2, and I'll also be having subtitles, subtitle 1 and 2. So Control D to create a duplicate of the line. Control D or Command D on Mac. And for this side, we will also be having one for our buttons, one for our caption, and one for our overlines. So I'll add a link to the description below for you to understand how I came about these colors. These types over here. So in order to set these types, first we set a style, right? And we are going to call this. Usually I use the name of my application like this. So text appearance. I just follow the convention that they give over here. So instead of app compat, I use world. So over here in the theme, I'm using what? World of luxury. So instead of using world, let me just change this to Swan. The name seems too long, and I'll just refactor this so that to update it everywhere else. And I'll use text appearance dot swan dot headline 4. And the parents, it will be inheriting from, let's just say headline 4. So material components, right? So you realize I'm following the same convention that they used here, right? Text appearance, and then the name of the theme, and then the name of the property. You see, so text appearance, Swan, headline 4, right? Okay, but you can do it any way you want it. Just make sure that you remember the names, right? And it's best to follow, conventions. So we have our fonts family here. I'm going to set our font family here to be Marvin Pro Medium. And I'm going to set the color, right? Sorry, the text color. So realize that this color here is a bit too light. It's not pure black, if you can see that. So I'm going to tell it to use, again I'm going to tell it to use the color on background. So it's going to use the color on background. The color on background, so if you're on a white background, it's going to use black, right? So if you're on a black background, it's going to use white. Yeah, that's a tricky one. So yeah, and I'm going to duplicate these properties for the others, for the other headlines. Okay, so this will be 5 inheriting from 5, and 6 inheriting from 6. Good. Now we move on to our body text over here. Let me just paste the same thing, and I'll call this body 1, and also inherit from body 1. And for the body, or for the body, we're going to use rubric, regular rubric. And I don't need to set the text color, it's already black. And I'm going to use the same for body 2 here. You don't need to set for all of them. Actually, the headline starts from 1 all the way to 6. And the body text are 1 and 2, subtitles 1 and 2, button, caption, and overline. So yeah, they're like, let's say 3, 5, 7, 10, 13 in number, right? You don't need to set for all of it. You just set for the ones that you think you will use inside your application. So you're going to have subtitle 1 here. And you're also going to use subtitle 1. And this will be subtitle 2. And then 2. Okay. Now this is where it gets different. For my button, I'm going to use a medium form of the rubric here instead. And for the caption, I'm going to use a medium form as well. So I'll be using captions for the names of maybe people, maybe a username or something, like anything. Okay, when it's necessary, you will find them there. Don't worry. So for overlines, I use overlines for setting, like what I have over here. What I created down here, created with love for my subscribers. I use overline for this side. So I think even on this page, I use overline over here. So when I apply the properties, it's going to update all of these fonts for me. So I'm going to set this to overline with a capital O. And I'm going to set the same thing here. Okay, good. Caption, think I'll leave it as medium. We can change it anytime soon. So now let's go to our theme and actually apply these properties here. So I'm going to call this typography. Thank you. So I'm going to set text appearance headline 4 to text appearance headline 4. Swan. Good. And I'm going to duplicate this twice because the headlines, I have 3 of them. And now to our body texts. So text appearance body 1, and I'm going to have text body 1. So you realize I'm not typing the whole thing. I know the ID will help me. Not that I'm a lazy programmer, but come on, why will you resist such great help when it serves a good purpose? So subtitle here, subtitle 1. So text subtitle 1, and I do the same for the other one. This is a bit tedious, I know, but trust me, it's worth it. So text appearance button. So I'm going to have the same for, let's say, caption, text caption, and then overline, text overline, text overline. Good. So I've set everything now. That's for typography. So when I go back to this page and I view it, you realize that it has applied the fonts for me. So I have headline 4 here. This is body text 1, I think. Let's go back to the code. This is body text 1. This is headline 4. This one is using the button, so I don't need to tell it. Yeah, it will inherit from the button, right? Yeah. So that's how you add typography to your application. Okay, so we've set our types, right? Let's run the app. Actually, let's run the app. Currently, it's not online, so I don't know if it will be able to get these fonts. I don't think I've run an application with the fonts on it already. So if it doesn't, in our next build, I'll cache them, and then we can see a preview of them. But at least you can see it from our layout over here. Okay, so we have them. Let's create your own style, blah, blah, blah. Move on to the next page. And our fonts are looking good. So the overline is also down there. And it's looking better now. Okay, that's nice. Okay, so our next step is to work with shapes. So we're going to follow. Sorry, I shouldn't have closed that. Welcome. Yeah, we're going to work with shapes as well. So let me just call this shapes. So I'm going to create, again, I'm going to create shapes over here. So I'm going to call this shape. And we are done with our type. Shape. And shape for shapes, right? We've grouped them into 3 categories. We have small components, medium components, and large components, right? So again, I'll add a link in the description below so that you can read more about it. It's just a guideline that Android development using these material components has grouped icons and buttons and all of those things within the application, right? So it categorizes smaller views under the small component, like a button, a fab, and so on and so forth. And then for a navigation drawer and the others under the medium and large and so on. So that's the main idea over here, right? So we're going to have our small components here, medium, and we're going to have our large components here. Okay. So again, I'm going to use the same approach. So I'm going to call this shape appearance. Wow, my spelling is on point. Shape appearance dot small, and then appearance will be small components. I'll duplicate this a number of times, and this will be medium components, and this will be large components. Again, I'm going to call this small components, and you know what? I'll just copy these. Why else would they invent copy and paste if I'm not going to make good use of it? Yeah, so yeah, our fonts have been registered there. And let me apply these shapes over here. So currently I haven't overridden any of these properties here. I'm using the default ones from here, sorry. So when I press Ctrl and click on this, I'm using the default ones that we have here. So every small component has a corner size of small component, which is 4 dB, which is according to their guidelines. So small components have a corner size of 4 dB. The corner size is just talking about the shapes at the end over here, you see. So if I set the corner size, it applies shapes to all of the sides that we have here. If I set, let's say, corner size left, or maybe, let's say, bottom left, it's going to apply a shape to this side of the screen, of the button, sorry, and leave the other parts, right? But I can override all of them. So let's just give it a try. Okay. So first, let me apply them to my theme here. So again, I'm going to call shape small component, and I'll just call small component, and I'll use mine. And I'm going to do the same for the rest. Shape medium, and I'm going to call medium component, and then shape large, and I'm going to call large component. Okay. These are shapes, and yeah. So take a good look at this button here. So we're going to override our small components like this. So what are some of the properties we can override here? So for a guideline, you can just control click on this. It will send you to this documentation here, and you can see that we can change the corner family, right? As well, we can change the corner sizes. So there are two things that you can change here: the corner family and the corner size. Corner family is an enumeration of two values, rounded and cut, right? Rounded and then cut. So let me change the corner family here. Corner family here to be cut. For our small component, since currently the button is the only one that we see here on the screen. And then once I do that, let me just zoom in a little on this. You realize that the button is now having these sharp edges over here. And let me also change the corner size of, let's say, the bottom left to be, instead of 4 dB, which is the standard one, let me use 8 dB here, and then we see a preview of it. So you realize that this bottom left has a deeper cut as compared to the other parts, you see. And let's increase this to make it more prominent. So move back here. Yeah, you can see that now. So we have this 16 dB cut on our small component. So this is one way of changing, this shape, okay, of your small component. So it makes your application unique. We can also do other crazy stuff. So let's say for the same small component, I want to use two different corner families. I want to use both corner families. right? So I can use corner family bottom left and set only the bottom left side to be rounded and the rest to be cut. Okay, so let's go back here. Okay, so when I zoom in on this, you realize that the bottom left is rounded and the other parts are cut. Okay, so yeah, you can do a lot with this. Actually, we can do a lot with this. So let's say I want to change the bottom left and the top right corners to use 16 dp, and I'm also going to use corner family top right to be rounded. So I'm saying that for every other side, aside the top right and the bottom left corners, use cut, and they should have a corner size of 16 dp. So this is the outcome of what I just did. So we have here to be cut, and we are using rounded for the bottom left and top right, and we have cut for the other corners, right? So let's increase the corner size of the other ones to, let's say, 8 dp, so the cut will be more prominent. Okay, so we have huge cuts over here, and yeah, so this looks like a bus, but you get a point. Okay, I'm not going to do this, but yeah, I just wanted you to understand how to apply shapes to components. So you can do the same for the medium and then the large. Okay, so as development goes on, right, we'll be changing some of these properties, but I just wanted to get this out of the way first, so that at least we know how we know the kind of approach we'll be getting, or what we'll be seeing through our application. So let's go into a page that has more buttons over there. Sorry. So when I go into the authentication page, for instance, you realize, yeah, we have 2 buttons here. So let me just zoom in, and let me use design only. Yeah, we realize that they are inheriting from the shapes that we had declared initially. Okay, so when we run the app, let's see how horrible this will look like. Okay. Okay, this is how our button looks like. Yeah, this is not so attractive. Yeah, but you get the point. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to delete these, but I'm just going to comment them out like this. And let me just declare proper ones for it. So let me just I'm going to use 8 dp for my small component, and I'll declare a family here, a corner family, for them to be rounded. Okay. So I'll leave this here just for you to, see how you can change them and all of those good stuff. Okay, so let's run this again. Okay, so aside the shapes that we have over here, we can set, so let me just set the corner families for these guys. Okay, so we're using these corner families, and then we'll maintain the corner sizes until we think we may have to change them as time goes on. So you can try your hands on them, and then inside the comment section below, you can tell me which nice designs you had, and then the dimensions you used for your corner sizes, so that I can also apply them to this application, and then we see the outcome. Okay, so yeah, we can do that as well. So just add them to the comment section below, and then I'll go through them, and then we'll also apply them and see how beautiful this application will get. Okay, so for the last part here, we can, aside applying properties to our colors and type and then the shape for the application, we can also set individual styles for our views, or in this case, you can call them our widgets. Okay, so I'm going to create a widget XML file here, and what I'm going to do is we can set styles for our buttons, for instance. So let's say, let me just call it widget.swan, and the parent will be Android widget. So this is just the base property, right? So I'm going to set a style here for my button. So I'm just going to call this widget.swan.button. And if I wanted to have a parent, I can set the parent property here to use the button material component widget.button here, like this. So it's going to use this property here. And what I can do is I can overwrite all of this, right? I can overwrite all of these properties for my button. So you realize that the text appearance of every button is going to use the text appearance property that we declare for our button, right? And then the background is going to be empty, the enforced text appearance true, enforced theme true, and so on and so forth. So, and then the corner radius is also now, and so you can basically change all of these. And you realize that it's using a shape appearance of small components, right? Which is what we declared here. Shape appearance, small component. Good. So we can change any of these properties for our button. So what I'm going to do is I want to change the paddings on my button. You realize that the button that I have here, I want to set a padding to the top and the bottom over here. So I'm going to override the padding top and the padding bottom properties. So let's do that. So item padding top. And for the padding top, I want to use spacing large, which is 16 dB. So you can just put your cursor over it and you see the value here, 16 dB. And I'm going to do the same for the button. And I'm going to apply this style to my theme. So any style that you declare, if you don't apply it to your theme, it won't work. It will just be there. Okay, so you need to apply it to your theme. So I'm going to call button style, and we are going to work with material button style. I think it should be here. Material button style. Or just say button style. Yeah. I'm going to call widget button Swan. Yeah, this guy. So let's get back here and see how it looks like. So you realize that padding has been added to the top and bottom of this button here. So if you can't see it clearly, let's set an outrageous padding here. Okay, x32. So x32. What's that? x32 here and there. And I'm not sure it will support that, but you get the idea. Yeah, so let's just set this to be large, which is 16 dB. Okay, and let's run our application again. Okay, don't worry, my screen looks smaller here than there. So, okay, and I think probably I'm applying it to the wrong. Let me just go for material button style. Okay, I think this is the one. Yeah, this is definitely the one. So 16 dB. It's a bit too much, but yeah, let's see how it looks like. Okay, so you get the idea now. We have enough spacing at the top and the bottom. So we can also set for the left and right. Okay, so let's say, sorry, pardon, left. And I can add spacing normal and also padding right. So spacing normal. So we have 8 dps to the left and right and 16 to the top and bottom. By default, I think it has 16 dps to the left and right. Let's see. To the left and right, 16 here. So if we wanted to increase this, we could do maybe 24 or something. So let me just add 24 here. X24 have 24 dps here, and rather set that to be my left and right. Yeah, so that at least we can see a difference. So this is too small. So you can just browse through all of these properties, right? You can just browse through all of them, and when you just want to, when you are lost and you want to know where to go, to just control click on the name, and then for all of these properties, you can just click on them, and it will help you to understand how to overwrite them. You see? Okay. Okay, so our pattern looks okay here, and yeah, this side also looks fine. Yeah. So you write that this property that we applied here doesn't apply to the outlined buttons. So what we are going to do is you're also going to set the outline buttons properties here. So we are going to say material outlined button style dot button dot outlined. So I'm going to add, I'm going to add this here, and inside widget, I'm going to duplicate this with Control D dot outlined. Sorry, and I'm going to do dot outlined here as well, and I'll set the same properties for my outline button. So the arrow should be gone here. When I come back here and run the app, it should, for some reason, and when you're using the canary version of Android Studio, you won't see this outline buttons here, but when you're running a stable version, you should see it there. So I have a stable version here, so I'll open this in a stable version next time so that we can see the view. Okay, so our app is about to run here. Okay, so get started. Yeah, so we have, you see, we have the same properties here as well. Okay, that's good. So this is how you apply theming to your application. Okay, we'll be working with other components. Currently, the reason why I added it, I added only what's the name, properties to the buttons, is because those are the only prominent widgets that we are using on our pages right now. As we go on with the development of the other pages, I will add more of them. So that we can have a feel of how these icons and how the theming property actually helps to make your application more attractive. So I'll catch you in the next one. And our next episode, we are going to do a bit of coding, right? Pure coding, right? We're not going to be running the app a lot. We're just going to create data models, database, and we'll run a number of unit tests to see if they actually work the way we want them to work. So it's going to be a long video, probably not as long as this one, but hopefully we'll reach an understanding there on how to implement a local database on our Android application. Okay, so I'll catch you in the next one, and bye bye.